What's good? The Black Anglo-Saxon. We back again with another one. Before we get started, we please like the video, share the video, subscribe. I surely appreciate it. Today we're gonna be talking about this whole Nick Cannon debacle, and more importantly, the Nick Cannon himself. I wanted to touch on it for a slightly different reason than everybody else is, because we all know and understand that the historical context that was presented is false. And I'll say most of us. And even for those who don't know and don't understand the context, I'm going to play a video that describes it perfectly, because we have seen a bunch of people already speak on it, but I more so want to speak on the phenomenon around how these conversations and how entertainers and how these platforms get weaponized and used against us, and why I think it's important that we not silence people, but that we should be very, very, very strategic in terms of staying in our lane. And what I mean by that is, if you do music entertainment, do music entertainment. If you do fashion design, do fashion design. And what I'm talking about at the expertise level, at the professional level, because everybody has hobbies and everybody has different things that they do on the side that isn't necessarily the service that they give to the community or the society, but the thing that they actually have built, that they actually trade on, that they add value in, and that they add value on. And again, this is not saying that you cannot build other skills, but the problem that we're having in our community is that we are having people who are not mature politically having conversations that are going into the ethos, into the ether, and creating these storms that create different, or I'll say very cumbersome paths for us to navigate as a collective. And I'm gonna just go ahead and I'm gonna share this. I want to say this is Isaac Hayes the third, who is going to be here talking, because he hit it spot on. It is the perfect synopsis, and I'm gonna just go ahead and let him speak to it.
I want to talk about what Nick Cannon said about the KKK and the Democratic Party, because I'm not here to bash Nick Cannon, but I'm here to correct Nick Cannon. And Nick, I hope you received this very, very well. In the late 1800s, Southern Democrats were absolutely the party of the KKK, 100%. They believed in slavery. They wanted Black people to remain slaves and have no rights. In the North, the Republicans, the party of Lincoln, had abolitionists and people wanted people that wanted to have see Black people have rights. That is the truth. But here's the part that everybody leaves out. In the 1960s, Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Those two pieces of legislation drove the majority of the racists out of the Democratic Party to the Republican Party. And that's the shift in the part that everybody leaves out, because that was a huge political shift in this country. And what that's called is party realignment, right? Where the ideas of a political party switch. Political parties are not static. They can change over time and the ideas can shift. And so that was a huge shift in the Republican and Democratic Party. After that, the racists tend to lean more conservative and be part of the Republican Party. And the Democrats, now in the South, when segregation was gone, still contained a large number of Black people that voted Democrat. So, Nick, what you said is partly correct, but it's not all the truth. And when celebrities and public figures get online and say these types of things, you think that you're just saying, information that you're dropping, but you're also a megaphone yourself. You are, in a sense, a media platform. And a lot of people hear that and they see that and run with it. And so Yes, the Ku Klux Klan um, was strongly Democratic and conservative. It shifted when Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act of 1964 and 5. The majority of the racists left the party and went to the Republicans, and here we are now. So please, guys, just continue to read everything, all the information. Don't take sound bites and just believe things for yourself. But yeah, we got to do better.
So there you have it. That was a perfect example. That was a perfect articulation of how the transition has happened. And I think that's important because a lot of people talk about, well, it was this, the Republicans were the people that freed us. And now, the Democratic Party is the KKK and all of these different misnomers that basically muddy the waters. And again, I'm not here to cape for the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party has a lot of work to do when it comes to serving the actual Black community, the largest base that they've had that has helped them be essentially who they are as a party when it comes to their level of being reelected and having these seats that are operating as tenure at this point. And the thing that has to be discussed and the thing that we have to be really good at is not throwing the baby out with the bathwater because yes, even though the Democratic Party is right now in a space that offers no opposition to the Republican Party, they are not necessarily giving us any results when it comes to us and how we vote. But I will say, and I always say, that politics is symbiotic and that politics, the relationship to your politicals are based on the incentive structures that are set by the people who are quote unquote voting. And what I mean by that is that you get the politicals that you choose. You get the politicals that you feed because we want those who are the most vicious, the most willing to kick somebody in the head, the most willing to tell the best lies, the greatest lies, the boldest lies, and all of these different things. But we get surprised and shocked when we basically see scum continue to rise to the top. And I won't say scum, but scum, yes, yes. Because what we have to do is address how we're relating to this whole ecosystem. Because until we do that, we won't have results from either party. Because what I hear a lot of people doing in this Nick Cannon situation is you'll come out and you'll bastardize the Democratic Party and push people into the Republican Party when the Republican Party or the conservative party, what people like to call it nowadays, is you are ushering people into a party that essentially does not necessarily as a whole right now have the collective interests of Black people as well. And I know a lot of people are probably going to say, why are you watching this? Well, we got this from this side and look, each side has its benefits. What you have to get really good at and what you have to understand is that you have to operate on policy issues themselves. You have to care about the actual issues and they have to come ground up because by the time y'all get to people, y'all are just allowing them to express what their policy positions are, what their policy priorities are. And that's why we don't. And that's why we will continue to find ourselves not getting anything because we are not making them or giving them policy propositions. And so for people like Nick Cannon, like I've said in the past, and entertainers, you can do one or two things when it comes to people talk about solutions all of the time. You can empower politicos, people who actually do this as a living, and give them the megaphone and the microphone because they have a higher level understanding. And again, this is not to say that you're dumb, but this is to say that you have a cap based on where you've given your attention and where you've given your expertise and your skill set to versus somebody who does this as a career, does this as a job, does this and studies it over time. And so you can do that. You can create pipelines to be able to help people get those and create those type of spaces because what happens also in these different bodies is that he doesn't necessarily talk about or get to, which Isaac Hayes kind of spoke to, is that when you have Lyndon Baines Johnson do that, you essentially create a captured demographic. And right now we're in this space where we are basically essentially a non-factor because we are captured from start on both sides, because it's the way that we're engaging. Even if you say, oh yeah, I'm a vote Republican, everybody knows in their head that, okay, yeah, you going to switch sides, but you're not bringing to that side any different policy positions to the table either, because the politicians themselves are also capture groups. So we have to position ourselves in such a way that our voices are being elevated, if not equal or at a higher level. And the game is shame, because we're at a point right now in society where shame is the only thing that moves the needle, because the capital is so heavy and the money is so uh immense in politics that they're willing to throw away the base, throw away the group, throw away the layman, and allow the corporations or whoever their strongest donors are to come in and undergird their campaigns or their initiatives or whatever they having. And so that's what we have to do. And it can't be, oh, well, everybody is entitled to their own opinion. No, we have to get to a point as a group where opinions matter. It can't just be anybody speaking. Can you have that conversation at your dinner table or amongst friends behind closed doors? Absolutely. But when you take that microphone and you get in front of people and you say certain things, understand that if I am your opposition, I can use that and weaponize against you, your family, your community at large. And the way Isaac Hayes talked about parties not being static, it is true. Parties are vacuums. They take on the ideology that is filled with them, which is why I hate the cynical take, it is what it is, or play the game, because you're acquiescing to the ideological framework that's already present within the ecosystem, and you are essentially the problem when you take that on. And the same way political institutions are not static, the solutions to the problem are not static. I've talked about this on a number of occasions. The problems themselves shift over time based on demographics, based on the long-standing issue evolving into another situation. They have become more complex over time, which is why some people who were effective prior to civil rights are not and no longer effective in this era, because they don't understand the multicultural diversity and how that changes and shifts balance, how you have to engage and go differently about building coalitions, because you even have to access and come with platforms and positions when you're doing coalition work, because we like to build coalitions with people who don't necessarily also have our best interest. And when I'm talking about coalitions, I'm also talking about people within our own community, because we're divided along so many lines and so many ideological frameworks even within the Black community, that we bump heads because you everybody want to say it's 1,000 different ways to skin a cat, but it's one cat. If you start butchering it and I'm trying to scalp it, we're bumping heads. We have to be a monolith, and I will continue to say it. We have to be a monolith in how we approach these matters. We have to have a standard. We have to have a mechanism of control when it comes to narrative, because politics is like 80% narrative. And if you don't have control over the narrative, you've already lost. And part of controlling the narrative is knowing the whole story and know what parts benefit you and what parts don't. So if you're going to speak to something and say something, then at least, at the very least, use the parts that advantage you and your community. Don't, because you saying that the Democrats are the KKK does absolutely what? That's what you have to ask. That's what we have to ask. And then we also have to understand as a community, it can't just be because I saw some gentleman, what is it? He said people mad with Chili and Nick Cannon, and not one single bill that the Democrats produce help Black life. Yet y'all still out here vouching for these clowns. And it's like nobody is vouching for the Democratic Party. I don't believe that people are vouching for the Democratic Party. What I believe and understand is that people are saying, look, when you say stuff, they have consequences. And the same way we can say that there hasn't been real benefit to Democrat policies, there hasn't really been any real benefit from Republican policies either, because they both feed the same cycle, just from different ends. Because their whole striverism bit is we not gonna help you. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. But let me know what y'all think. Was Nick Cannon on? Was Nick Cannon off? I don't necessarily disagree with Nick Cannon in the sentiment that the Democratic Party does not help Black people, but the way that it was articulated was incorrect and may have harmful impacts moving forward because his voice is loud. And a lot of people agree now with his voice and is amplifying it even more. But let me know. Sound off in the comments. Appreciate you. Thank you.